Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Lesley Spellman.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to episode 104 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid. In today's episode, I'm talking to Jeani from Columbus, Ohio in the US. Jeani has been a member of the Declutter Hub since April, and she is decluttering her belongings so she can downsize in the future and move from a house to a condo. Now, we don't know the word condo here in the UK, so it's, I think, similar as an apartment. Now, Jeani thinks she has to let go of 75% of her stuff. So welcome, Jeani. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so excited to be here, Ingrid. So excited. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. And I feel really lucky because I already saw you yesterday too at our 1-year anniversary party. So I hope you're not getting an Ingrid overload here.
I don't think that's possible. No.
Oh, thank you. We did have a good time yesterday. We were just talking about it.
It was so much fun. It was great to see people and put names with faces and frankly, hear a lot of people say a lot of the things that I've thought and expressed. And it's just very nice, very validating, and just so sweet to see other people too.
Oh, I know. Because of course, in the Declutter Hub, we normally see we talk with each other on our forum, our internal forum, and we have our live Q&As. But of course, you always see Lesley and me, but you don't really see the other members. But because we were celebrating our 1-year anniversary, we had a party for our members, a little Zoom party, and with balloons and a cake and a candle, and we were kind of hanging out for a while, and I agree with you. It was so nice to see everybody. Now, Jeani, before we kind of dive into downsizing, and 75% people maybe on the other side going, what 75%? Don't worry, we're going to talk about that later. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I am recently retired, having been an elementary music teacher in different schools for 20 years. I taught piano lessons for over 25 years, and I most recently retired from a symphony orchestra where I was the education director. So in all of those, I've had to multitask and always had to be very organized. And because of my husband's position, we've had to move, change towns a couple of times, and within that, we've lived in 4 different houses. So I have grown children who live in different states. West Coast, East Coast. And we always said that once we finally retired, we thought we would just find a spot someplace in the middle, and then it would be easier to get everywhere. Well, we didn't think the middle was going to be like in Kansas. So I'm not real sure what we're going to do as far as retiring. But we've been in this current house for about 13 years, and we've always said, maybe we'll stay here another 10 years. And recently my husband has started to say things like, we really need to downsize. We need a bedroom on the first floor. Our kids don't want this kind of stuff. We need to get rid of everything. I like the idea of being organized. And just last night I was searching for something for like 2 hours that I couldn't find. And that drives me nuts. So I like the idea of knowing where everything is. So maybe, sometime last fall, I had a half an hour commute to go to a weekly meeting. And so I wanted to listen to a podcast about decluttering. And so I Googled, and you guys were the first ones that came up. And so I started listening and just felt an immediate connection with everything. So I really liked it. I liked how you approach everything in different parts, and just really connected with it. So my journey has begun.
Yes. So what do you think is then the main reason why you want to downsize? Is it just the size of the house, or is it because you're thinking about moving anyway to somewhere in the middle?
Originally, we thought we were going to move someplace in the middle, and we've kind of put that on hold. We don't know where that's going to go.
Yeah.
But while we don't live in a huge, enormous house, we we live in a really nice urban area. It's very close to downtown and very easy to get around to things. But again, my husband, for some reason, seems to think that we need to have a first floor bedroom. Neither one of us are having any trouble getting up and down the stairs or anything, but that's kind of been his thing that he's been saying lately. If we do want to go visit the kids, it would be nice to be able to just kind of shut the place up for a couple of weeks and not have to worry about it. But there's leaves, and you just have to be careful with things and have to make sure that everything is taken care of. And I don't want any pipes to burst while we're gone. And it just seems like it would be nicer to move someplace that we talk about a condo, which is condominium, which is like an apartment, only you own it. Just because you can lock it and leave. And then there's somebody else watching other things. We talk about moving just to a smaller house. Again, there's that first floor bedroom thing that doesn't have as much upkeep.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the thing that is kind of driving that. Yeah. Plus, we hear a lot of things from our friends who are about the same age who say things like, and I heard somebody say this yesterday on the Zoom party, that also my kids don't want my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And which is a little different than when my mother was trying to get rid of all of her stuff. I wanted some of that. I wanted some of those antiques, and I wanted a lot of that. So they take a few things. I just got back from my daughters, and we took a carload out, and she was happy to have some of that. But she doesn't want my furniture. She wants newer things, and I'm sure that's what a lot of people are thinking too. So my husband and I have discussed, we don't want to leave a house full of things for them to have to deal with after we're gone, or if we are incapacitated. We don't want them to have to come in and deal with that, in spite of the fact that we and our parents had to deal with all of that. So I'm not sure where the switch in thinking has come there.
I think you're mentioning a couple of very interesting things there, Jeani, because I agree with you about the upkeep of a house. I think a lot of people underestimate how much time it costs to run a house, and besides, the stuff, and besides the laundry and the grocery shopping, and it's the garden, it's the cars, it's the garage, it's the gutters, it's the washing of the windows, and all of those things that you need to do to a house to keep it in good condition. So I really, really are with you on that one. The second interesting thing that you said is, I don't want to bother my children with sorting all of this out. And that really, really reminds me of my mom, who's been downsizing her belongings and is now, fingers crossed, moving to an apartment at the end of the year. She went to have a look yesterday. It's being built at the moment. And now that over the past 7 years, she slowly but surely has been kind of decluttering her house, because she was like, she got very poorly at one point. My dad got really, really poorly at one point. So she was like, wow, this is not going well. And who's going to sort all of this out when we're not here anymore? And we just don't want our children to have to tackle this all. And I think it's really a topic that's getting finally discussed a little bit, but it was almost very difficult to talk about, I feel, in the past. So I'm so grateful to you that you're actually mentioning this, and that you're thinking about this, and that you're maybe inspiring other people to go, gosh, I hadn't really realized it. Because we are so used to, in the generations, handing our stuff from grandparents to parents and from parents to children. But now our children are saying, but I don't want that stuff. It's not my taste. It's not. So I'm really with you on what you've just said. I'm completely on board.
I think my son has, who's been probably in 3 different apartments, and now he's in a home. He says to us a lot, especially when it's time for some kind of gift giving. He's very into really try not to give us anything things. He said, we love experiences, but we would love to not have things. And they're pretty good about that. So as I am like pulling things out from underneath my bed that I brought with me from his childhood home, I at least take pictures of these things. So he's got pictures, and when we go to visit, at first I would take like a box and I'd say, let's just look at this stuff, and then you do whatever you want with it. And then, but it's yours, you've got it. And, responsibility is not mine anymore, but I've still taken pictures. And in the back of my head, one of the things on my first year retirement to-do list is to put together some kind of a photograph book that, maybe it's like of holiday photos, but includes some of those pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Because my son, for one example, my son did this really great, like a third grade project about the astronaut John Glenn. And he did one of those things where he did all these drawings and then it moved and everything. And he was really into John Glenn for a long time. And then about 15 years ago, he met John Glenn.
Oh, wow.
And his photo taken with him. And so that was a really, pretty big deal. So I don't know whether he kept that thing or not, but still that kind of brought those things back to him. But those don't need to be in my house. He's a grown man. In his 30s, he can take care of that stuff now.
Yeah.
But I have to keep reminding myself of that. So
yeah. So you mentioned something, and I find that very interesting. You said something about a list. So tell me about the list. I love a list. I'm a list maker.
Well, I never used to think that I was a goal-oriented person, and it's really been in the last, I don't know, maybe the last 5 or 6 years. I thought, oh, well, maybe there's something to these goals. And I thought it was interesting. Lesley posted something recently on the Facebook page about goals. And I thought, well, she's talking to me. I have like my whole list of first year things that I wanted to do in my first year retirement. And at the very top is clear the decks, declutter. So, and that's a huge part of it. And within that goal is I have a list of each room, I on the website, on your wonderful website that I just love. There, I've been through all of the different rooms. I've watched almost all of your videos, and I'm kind of a big fan of how-to things. Always have been a big fan of how-to books, just because I think somebody's got some kind of an idea that I've never heard of, or there's always a way to make it better. And, sometimes that happens. So, but I thought about each one of my rooms, and I just like listed like each section of a room, just like even in my master bathroom, which is not an enormous room. I said, I've got listed here drawers, a new towel bar, and just the corner of my shower. And so I know that I've got to deal with all that stuff. And now that I think about it, I need to add rugs to that. So, but each one of those, I have a different section, and I have some of them already crossed off, so I'm feeling pretty good. But it just kind of keeps me going. And as I'm working on one thing, like I was working on my sewing closet earlier this week, and I was getting that all put together and kind of working out into the other room. And my husband kind of walked by and said, yeah, that looks really great, but what about this other closet? I said, it's on the list, and I promise I will get to it. So that's another good thing about that list. It keeps me going and keeps him at bay. So I like that.
Oh, me too. I love a list.
Yep,
Now,
yep.
We are going, because you mentioned the videos, you've mentioned the website, but let's talk about that a little bit later. I first would like to go back to, because of course we had a little chat about this podcast before I kind of pressed record. We talked a little while, and you said something very, very interesting, because you actually said we don't have a very big house. And if I look at your room where you're sitting, it doesn't look cluttered at all. But you said, well, there's a lot of cupboards, and there's a lot of kind of closets and things and furniture with stuff in it. And you said something like, well, and when I moved here 13 years ago, I actually didn't want to move, so I brought everything. So can you expand on that? Because I thought that was very interesting.
Well, as I said, we moved a couple of times for my husband's job, and we left a town. I love this town. I left a job, a teaching job that I absolutely loved. We had lived there for 20 some years. My children grew up there, went to school there. So while we weren't going across country, I still see a lot of the friends there, but it was, I didn't want to go. So, and even though I'd convinced myself that this was an adventure and this was going to be fun and this was going to be great, I just, it was denial, plain and simple denial. And so when the moving guys came, they came to pack us up. I hadn't gotten rid of anything, and I hadn't packed anything. I probably packed my china just from having moved a few times, packed it myself just because, I'm not stupid. I did know that those things get broken. And so, but nothing else got packed. Like my kids' video games were for old basements. There were like old boxes that just really that had no reason. So they packed everything that they found. I didn't get rid of anything. And I've been paying for it for 13 years because all of that stuff got moved into this house. And every year where I live, they have an area we call it yard sale, garage sales. And, the little village just kind of fills up with people. But I have a teeny tiny front yard. And so it's hard to get all of that in there. But that's like an ongoing process. I've been doing this for 13 years, trying to get rid of it. My sister has garage sales, and I routinely take things to her. But it's still, I have things, I found like my baby stuff from a million years ago. And, some things in the box were kind of rotten. And it's like, oh, this is such a shame. I should have had a huge garage sale before I left. And I probably could have gotten rid of, 20, 25 boxes worth of stuff so that I just didn't need to bring. They were putting lampshades in boxes all by themselves. Lampshades that I don't even have anymore. Lampshades that I didn't even want in the first place. So that was a mistake. I should have gotten rid of all of that.
It's interesting because if people tell me, anybody they're like, oh, I'm going to move house. And the first thing I would say, start decluttering your house. And they're like, but we need to do viewings and we need to do this and that and sort out address things. And we so many other things to do. And I'm like, trust me, declutter some of your stuff, because everything that isn't packed and isn't in your house doesn't have to be transported, and you don't have to unpack again. But I think it was kind of your way of almost rebelling against the move a little bit, wasn't it? You just kind of were like, digging your heels in the ground while trying to put on a brave face going, yeah, let's do this. And
then a year later, my daughter moved out west, and it was supposed to only be for 2 years. And then she was going to come back. And so we were she moved from an apartment. And so we ended up with a bunch of boxes in our basement that I've been storing now for 12 years. And long story short, she didn't come back. She stayed out there. So, and it's become really clear that she wasn't going to come back. But, I have all of her little photo albums from junior high school. And it's, a lot of, apparently I have diaries too, which I did not read. And I have all of those and photos. And I found her troll collections. Do you guys, trolls a big thing there?
Yeah.
Well, I have her trolls that my sister collected back in the 60s. And, they're not nearly as cute as the ones they have now. So we recently drove out west. I wasn't going to fly. It would cost a fortune to ship all that stuff. And she doesn't want it. So we filled up a car and took a lot of that stuff out there. And like all of her American Girl dolls and, Barbie stuff. And she's got 2 little girls now. And so we had been storing all of that stuff. Well, in my search yesterday, when I was looking for these things that I never did find, many Christmas, I found 4 more boxes of hers. Oh, I could just shoot myself. Oh man. So I'm going through a lot of those things, and frankly, I'm going to make an executive decision about whether or not she's getting any of that. I don't know that she really. She didn't say, well, what about this or what about that? So my guess is she's forgotten it. She gets
Yeah.
out of here. So
Yeah.
that's on my list now. On the list.
It's also on the big list. On the
Yes,
big list.
absolutely.
Fantastic. So now you don't even know yet if you're really going to downsize and
No,
where it is, but you've
no.
basically just decided, you know what, we need to sort this house out. I need to go through this, and I don't want to leave all this stuff. But you at one point said to me, I think 75% of this stuff needs to be decluttered. And even I was a bit like, wowzers, that is a lot. So did you kind of pluck that amount from the air, or have you kind of
Well,
really...
again, I'm a musician and not a mathematician generally, even though those two kind of go together. It just seems like a lot. I don't know, kind of based on my list that I'm looking at. And my basement is not a mess, but, there's a lot of stuff. I don't know. 75% seemed like a lot to me. Just because if we were to move, like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, all of these things go through my head. I'm a big midnight ruminator, and I just tried to imagine what all we would take with us, and tried to engage my husband actually in that conversation this week, and he was not going to have any of it. But I thought, if we were going to move somewhere, do we really want to move all this stuff? And how much would we take? And so, trying to go back to sleep, I was going from room to room thinking, okay, I'd take this, 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 and this. And I didn't, come up with 75%, but why not?
Yeah.
Seems like a lot. So I just think a lot of stuff would not go with us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's so funny because indeed, it's like my mom. She rings me now. I've been awake last night thinking that I need to ask you if you want to have this stuff, and if you want to. So I've made a little list for you, Ingrid. I mean, I know where I've got my organizational things from. It's all from my mom, but I'm just not trying to do this in the middle of the night. And so she's like, and I'm gonna. Do you want to have your pram, and do you want to have these Dutch canal houses furniture things? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, no, Mom, thank you. I don't want it. It's fine. But I've said to her, listen, you've got until December, January. You have enough time. You don't have to lie awake now already to think. But I think it's her way of planning ahead, mentally getting ready as well to kind of do this.
Well, and also, I feel like I'm the caretaker. I have a caretaker of a few things that belonged to our parents and grandparents. Like the desk I'm sitting at now, my husband's grandfather built.
Wow.
And there's on the bed behind me is a quilt that my great grandmother made. And I have both of my great grandmothers were quilters, and I'm a quilter too. But when my sister and I went through my parents' house, so I ended up with them because I'm the quilter.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I have 2 dozen, but I have more than a dozen.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get rid of these. So what do I do with them? So, they're going to have to go with me. I have pottery, pickle jars that my great grandparents made pickles out of. I have, I don't know, quilting hoops. I have furniture and everything. My husband's got a rocking chair upstairs that his great grandmother rocked him in. It's like, what do you
Wow.
do with those things? Hey, tell me what I should do with those things, please, Ingrid.
I know. That's why I'm really glad Lesley and I wrote the whole sentimental course recently, because and we talk about furniture, and we talk about, China, and we talk about, so you're not there yet, but at one point, I think the sentimental course in our membership will help you tremendously. And I think Lesley and I started out going, yes, we need to do a sentimental course. And I think it ended up being 5 hours of video alone.
And I'm looking forward to that. I am looking forward to that. I'm sure there's some great insights in there.
I hope so. And I think that is the sentimental items like these are the most difficult to make decisions on, because they have an incredible value, and not monetary, but just psychological value, if it's
Absolutely.
family history. And that's why it's so important when people become members of our membership that we say you don't start there. You need to start somewhere else,
Mhm.
because sentimental items is the hardest category to do. So yeah, once you get
Okay.
there, we'll
Take a
talk
look.
we'll talk about it in our member Q&As with you once you
Yeah.
start to make some decisions on those, Jeannie.
Yeah.
So basically, you started listening to the podcast while you were driving around. You started listening, and you kind of
Mm.
thought, "This is fun. I need to kind of get my head around decluttering and downsizing my house. So I'm going to listen to these girls chatting away." And then you kind of started getting stuck in with the challenges and everything, didn't you?
Went through as many podcasts as I could, and then you had over our Thanksgiving weekend in November, you had the 5-day challenge, and we weren't going anywhere, and so I just dug right in. And I know it was like pencils and paper, which is, I love all of that. I'm right there with all of you, and I forget what everything else was, and just it was great. So I really like that. And so that kind of gave me a little taste of it. And then the one that really dragged me in was when you did the 40 days, 40 items challenge. And so I started that, and I actually just thought, well, this will be fun. And I'll make like a little list of everything that I did. And so then I kept with that, which was a lot of fun. I kept it all in one place. And of course, we got into the pandemic in the middle of it, kept going, and all. And I just really, I taken care of some of that stuff, but I still have it like in a bag, but I don't really have any place to take it yet. So I need to get it out. So, but then I did that. And then you've had, I feel like there was another challenge not long after that. And then I said, okay, I've been hearing you talk about this website and the members area. I thought, okay, well, I'll try it. And then I
Yeah.
think there might have been like a 1 month free trial. I thought, okay, well, I'm going in there. And so I got in and I started looking at all of your lists and all of your videos. I just got sucked in. I thought, I love this. And in my former position, I had to work a lot with websites. I just love the website and just the way it's organized, and however you click on this and you find this and it's easy to get here, and the colors are really nice. I like all that. And like I told you, I just think that website is cute as a Dickens. So, and just works so well for me. I really like it. I think it's very easy to navigate. So after that 1 month, I signed up. I thought, okay, well, I'll pay for another month. I kept looking at the videos, and before I knew it, that first month was up. And I thought, well, okay, I better do another month. And then I went to visit my daughter, and I was telling her all about it and showing it to her. And before I knew it, the next month. So I just thought, like in the last few weeks, I thought, why am I nickel and diming myself? I need to just like do a year subscription to this. And so that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you're stuck with me for a year, Ingrid.
well, we love it, Jeannie, and we love having you. So we're so happy, and we can see that you're moving. You're moving forward, and sometimes the steps are little, sometimes the steps are big,
Mhm.
but you're moving forward, and that is, I think, so important. And we've got such a nice vibe going on, and it's exactly, when we have our Q&As every other week, and you also said that you love those too, don't you? We always have a great
I
laugh, don't
do love
we?
those Q&As. They're great, and I've gone back and looked at all of the old ones, and I like how you have the time links in there so that just in case I don't have a lot of time, or maybe you're talking about something that has to do with kids, or toys, there's something that doesn't resonate with me, I can click on to the next one. So I like the way that's organized. Oh, and speaking of toys, I've kind of ignored some of those just because I don't have kids around or anything. But as I was looking in this other bedroom, I have a corner behind my door where I have like all these toys for when my grandkids have come to visit once a year. I thought, oh, okay, that's starting to look pretty bad. I better go listen to better listen to that podcast. So that needs there. So I'm like not immune to everything. at all.
I know it's interesting because in the end you end up kind of looking at all the videos, don't you? And there's so much in there because of course we've got, I think, 14 or 15 different kinds of courses. We've got over 50 quick wins. We've got all the Q&As. So you can look back and you can revisit
Mhm.
things. And I'm really grateful that you're saying that it's so easy to navigate. And it's so, because
Yeah.
Leslie's going to be delighted because
Oh, good.
she's done such a great job, and I'm kind of helping a little bit here and there, but all the kudos go to Lesley on this one. That's for sure.
Oh no, it's a great website.
Thank
And
you.
some of my favorite ones, like the video, I love looking at how people organize their attics and their basements.
Hmm.
So which is on there. And even when I go to visit people, or once upon a time when we would go to open houses, I loved going to the basement to see how people had things organized. I mean, I don't care whether anything's, a mess or not, and I certainly don't want to see spiders, but I love how just trying to see how people organize things.
Yeah, because we have a whole, we do show rounds of our own houses, don't we, in the membership? So
Yes.
we show exactly how we have it in our own house. And I think that's really powerful for people to see. Oh, okay, that's how two organizers have it sorted.
Yeah.
And we are not about utter perfection, are we? But it's like, as long as you can find stuff and you
Mhm.
know where it is,
Right.
that's
Right.
important. Oh, good. So tell me about you were in your closet in your clothes closet the other day, weren't you, doing some work? And I think your husband came in and was a bit like, oh, I want to have some of that.
It was when I was switching over my clothes between seasons, and my clothes are kind of in a certain state now because, one, I've just retired and I don't know what I'm going to need next season or what everything. Plus, I've just lost a lot of weight, so I don't even know what fits anymore. So, I was in that closet pulling all of these things down, and my husband walked in and said, I really need to take care of all of my shirts and everything too. And I said, yes, you do, but that's next on the list. So I'm not going to do it right now, but yes, you do. You're right. We'll take care of that. So my list that I've talked about before just kind of keeps me going, and it doesn't distract me. As I've heard a lot of people talk about, I am one of those people with it's either a squirrel sees a nut or a dog sees a shiny object, something like that. I am very easily distracted by something, but my list just kept me going there. So he can
Fabulous.
distract me very much, and he tries to. So he does that a lot. And I said, no, I'm in the middle of this. When I'm done, I'll help. So,
Oh,
but no, he
well,
knows he has things that need to be taken care of. When I took care of my bedside table, he was in there 20 minutes later dealing with his, and
yeah.
I didn't even say anything. So
Yeah.
that's
That's
good.
nice though, to
Yeah.
see that he's on board as well, and
Yeah.
just doesn't say, oh, we need to downsize, but then goes, but I want to keep everything, because
No,
it's just not how it works, does it? So
no, he would be the first person to say, just, just like put it all in a black bag and throw it out. We don't need to keep any of this. I think he would be just fine if I emptied out a closet and just took it to the trash.
well, hopefully we can do a bit, bringing stuff to Goodwill and to charity, and because of course, there's probably tons of good stuff that other
Mhm.
people can really enjoy using up.
I need to. Our Goodwill is open, but I'm sure that that's being inundated. I have not been able to find. You talk about charity shops,
Mm,
and I haven't been able to find things that specifically, that sell things in support of something in
mm.
particular. My daughter-in-law in another state was telling me about something that she does, that she donates to, that is very much like that. So I haven't found
Oh,
anything like that here where I live, but I need to keep going.
yeah,
So, and anytime I
interesting.
find out about somebody being brave enough to have a garage sale, I say, can you take a box of stuff?
Well,
So
that's true, because garage sales is not something really we do here, not in your
no.
own house. We do kind of have car boot sales when you go to a field, but we wouldn't necessarily do them in our own houses. And I know that's quite a big thing in the US.
Yeah.
So
People open up their garages, or else you have them on your front yard and
yeah,
that kind of thing. So, but,
interesting.
in this pandemic,
True.
most people are not doing that. And a lot
Yeah.
of times, if I have something that I really don't want to put in the trash. It's maybe not something that I could donate. I will put it out with the trash, and 20 minutes later, somebody's gone through our alley and picked it up. And that's perfectly all right with me.
Yeah.
So I would rather somebody take that and do whatever they're going to do with it.
Yeah, completely agree with that. All right, Jeani, I love everything you've told us. So just to close off then this podcast episode, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners?
The biggest takeaway is, my lesson learned about make sure that you are going through your room systematically and getting rid of anything that you don't need before a big move.
Yeah.
And again, that seems like common sense, and I don't know where my head was 13 years ago, but it seems like common sense, and that's a huge, big thing. So, and to have goals and to have, just make a list.
Brilliant. Well, we have a moving house checklist. So I will add that to the show notes because maybe it's helpful for people. So I will definitely make sure. So if you are listening to this podcast, go to the declutterhub.com website, click on this podcast, and in the show notes, I will add that moving house checklist. And hopefully that's helpful for our listeners. So listeners, have you been inspired by Jeani's story and by her downsizing efforts and her view on trying not to have a house full of belongings that her children then need to sort out after, hopefully not soon, she will leave this beautiful planet? Has it made you think maybe a little bit and go, yeah, she's right. I need to start maybe going through some bits and make a start too. Or, hey, I do want to downsize maybe in the next year or two. And I'm going to check out the declutterhub.com members area because I want to hang out with Jeani and our other lovely members too. So Jeani, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Listeners, if you've enjoyed this podcast, do share it with other people. Maybe your friends and family would love our show too. And on our show notes page, you can find on our website, you can find all the sharing buttons. And if you want more handy tips and advice from Lesley and I, you can find us in lots of places. We have a fab supportive Facebook group called the Declutter Hub Community, which is a great starting point. And we have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook too. And we'd love to see you there, and take a look at members.declutterhub.com to find out more about our VIP membership. And if you don't want to miss the next podcast, subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast and it will pop into your notifications each Friday. We've been asking for reviews, which make a huge difference to us. And we have just loved reading all the recent reviews. So if you're still planning to do a review of the podcast, please do so. Lesley and I really appreciate you taking the time to do that for us. So thanks so much for listening, and see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration, and don't forget to tune in next week.